Hello ladies, I hope that your day is going well. In this video, I want to talk about abuse that masquerades as tough love and setting a standard to protect your well-being. And I was reading a community post on another content creator's page, and I thought that this was a fabulous topic to talk about because I think this is something that is really an issue that is not only just an ongoing issue, but it's one that doesn't get touched on enough. It doesn't get commented on enough. It's really something that is important for us as Black women to talk about and to recognize the problem, the very problematic dynamic of tough love that is actually abuse. And from my experience and from what I have seen, often Black women have been expected to not only accept the struggle of, not only accept settling, not only accept trauma and drama, but to also expect to have an expectation of being talked to roughly, harshly, meanly, and it's masqueraded as tough love when it really is the antithesis of how love actually looks. It is very important for us to heal from any generational abuse that's been passed down, to be healed from the struggle of matrix, to be healed from any dynamics where trauma, drama, and dysfunction is normalized. And that includes in conversation. It includes in the verbal arena, because abuse isn't always physical. One facet of abuse can be verbal abuse. And as Black women, because we are expected or have been expected for so many generations to endure so many different types and forms of abuse and of being denigrated and belittled and minimized. Verbal abuse is one facet of that. And we are expected to endure being denigrated and demeaned and diminished, but also talked to any kind of way. Being talked to very harshly, very meanly, with really no regard or respect for our feelings. And again, I'm talking about for the collective majority, not the anomaly, not the outliers. But if you look at a lot of the media that has been created over the past 60 years, if you look at the common themes that play out for Black women, if you look at some of what is presented via the manosphere and the mean men of the manosphere in particular, what you can see is a common theme when the discussion is referencing Black women. So often there is contempt, scorn, and disdain. And it is presented as tough love when it really does not include any facet of love. It's simply a means to be abusive to Black women and to try to sugarcoat it as something else. But if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So we know that if we look at this from a biblical standpoint, love does not look to harm others. It is not abusive. It does not look to denigrate and demean and devalue and diminish. 1 Corinthians 13 gives a great understanding of what that looks like, what authentic love looks like. We know if we look at it from a psychological viewpoint or a sociological viewpoint, love is something where you look out for the other person, where you want to protect the other person, provide for the other person, where you look to help the other person, to enable them to do better, to enhance their life. So it's very important for us as Black women to break free of cognitive dissonance, break free of what has historically been presented to us. And this has been something that has been passed down for over 100 years. I would say from the time of slavery on. So we are talking over 150 years. So we went from the very destructive and the very painful and the very traumatic and dramatic, the dysfunction and the many horrors of slavery through segregation. So we were minimized and devalued all through those processes. And then what has developed within the BC has been this socialization that to expect harshness from the outside world and harshness from well. So to expect to not be protected, or to expect to be talked to very harshly, to expect some meanness is just how it goes. That is the status quo. And I unequivocally say no. We should not be expecting to be treated meanly and harshly, and to be demeaned, to be devalued, to be disrespected, to be minimized. That is a spirit that needs to be spoken to. We need to expose, because this is very unhealthy. This is a very unhealthy, toxic, and dysfunctional mindset and dynamic that has been operating, that says it's okay to treat Black women poorly and to talk down to us and to denigrate us, and we should just accept this as the status quo. That's just how things are. Well, it's not how things have to be. We can see how this has played out. We can see how this has played out in various relationships. It could be family, it could be friends, it could certainly be romantically. How Black women are spoken to, we can look at from the different dialogue created by content creators that call themselves part of the manosphere, how overwhelmingly their diatribes and their rhetoric and their dialogue about Black women is not loving in any sense. The words they use, the tone, and the overall vitriol is not at all rooted in love. And the only way that you can change things is you have to address them, because continuing to pretend that abuse is tough love doesn't help anyone. And certainly as women, it's not helpful for us to continue to be subjected to that. So it's very important that if there are men and women that are not healed, that still carry that spirit of negativity, disdain, contempt, that is actually a form of verbal abuse, but is being couched as tough love, that if they haven't been healed from it, that we recognize this and that we are aware of what is operating, and that we not accept that as some form of love. It is important that we are healed, that we promote our wellness and our well-being, and that we recognize that this is a very destructive pattern that has been operating. It needs to be broken. It's very important that we recognize it and not continue to try to dress it up as something that it's not. It's not helpful. It's not loving, and it's not rooted in any form of love. It is a form of denigrating another to make oneself feel better. And it is rooted in unaddressed issues where someone has not addressed within themselves and has not been healed from an anger, a rage, a frustration, a disdain that they have that has not been fully addressed and has not conquered. So what we can do is we can distance ourselves from these podcasts or these videos, from these different channels that say that they are helping Black women or showing tough love to Black women, that's really rooted and ultimately has a foundation of contempt and disdain for Black women. Because what you'll find is there's very little that they have to say that's positive. If you look at the quotient, if you look at the ratio of things that they say that are positive about Black women versus what's negative, it's very skewed. Notice that it's not accepting of Black women in whatever, let's say, weight or skin tone or age. You'll see that it's very pointed in a small number of Black women that are applauded, that are valued. And it normally is associated with the sexual value that the man sees in her. So if she's not someone that he sees as a 10, as someone that he is intimately attracted to, then the woman doesn't have value. And love just doesn't look like that. That's not how love looks. we are intersecting with people that have a verbal abuse pattern, that we recognize it so that we don't continue to be subjected to it, and that we don't continue to gloss over it or to minimize it or to accept this as being being a form of love, when it really is a spirit that is operating that needs to be called out and needs to be addressed. It's someone who needs to be healed of that, but it's certainly not something that should be minimized or accepted or sustained, and certainly not replicated. Let me know what you think in the comments beneath the video. Always be blessed. Continue to level up. Stay far away from the struggle matrix and toxicity disguised as anything else, because you deserve better.